Well, cool, man. So, let's just jump right into it, man. I want to welcome everybody to the Cornerstone of America podcast. I'm your host, Alex Jowdy, and I am joined by the killer writing duo of Jeff Wilson and Brian Andrews. And how you guys doing?
Doing great, man. It's good to see you. Good to catch up.
Yeah. So, after I had you guys on last time, let's see here. How much has happened in the last year and a half, almost 2 years it's been now? Well, let's see here. A couple years ago when I had you guys on, I was recording in the hall of my bedroom. So, and now just before we started the show, gave you guys a little tour of like the studio space now. So, and I don't live in Washington anymore. I'm in Montana. So a lot has changed, but I think in a positive way. And your guys' books have just freaking taken off, especially the Tier 1 series. So in the last couple of years, like that whole profile with everything, tell me, how's that been? How's it been going through like COVID and not touring for a while and not getting back out there and starting to do that again and whatnot?
Yeah, it's a weird couple of years for everybody. I think like you, COVID affected the whole world and we're no exception, but like you, the timing was such that things were working out for us, maybe in spite of COVID, right. Being writers, obviously running a podcast, being writers, doing things remotely, sort of, the professional impact for us was less. But in fact, we had an incredibly blessed couple of years. So right around that time, we had already signed a contract to spin off the Sons of Valor series, which is the shared world experience or series with Tier 1. With Chunk Redman and those guys. And during that same time, we signed a deal for a three book deal for a new series with Tyndale House called The Shepherds. The first book, Dark Intercepts, come out in that one. We signed this deal to do this book that we were talking about today with Putnam on behalf of the W.B. Griffin estate, Rogue Asset. One of our books, we'll talk later, is now optioned for television. So we had a great couple of years. Like we've got no complaints whatsoever, as hard as it was on families and ours too, having the kids at home. But we had a great 2 years. So, yeah, like you, all positive change, I think.
And if there's one profession that lends itself to lockdown and COVID, it's being an author. we just buckled down and we were typing like madmen. And, it was funny, like Jeff was saying, because we had the one series and we were looking, we knew we wanted to do another series. So we sort of put out, how it is when you're fishing, you're putting out the different lures and stuff. And man, if we didn't hook one over here and then on the other side of the boat, hook one over here and you're bringing them in and it's like, can we really write more series a year? Can we do this? Did we just do something stupid? But we buckled down and we did it. And we increased our productivity. We found new ways to write faster, write better. And so that's been I don't know, it's sort of like mission accomplished. We didn't know if we could do it, and we did. We've hit all of our deadlines, and all the books have come out, and I don't think the quality's dropped because the reviews have been just as strong as ever. So,
yeah, I would assume with I remember talking to you guys last time. Remember a big chunk of that, just diving into your whole process, how you guys co-write books together, and then how you put them out so fast. And I think, just like anything else, the more reps you get at something, like the better you get at it, especially like in a team environment. And so I bet there's plenty of times where do you guys even, I remember like thinking about this when I was listening to you on Andy's podcast and you were kind of explaining the process as well. Do you ever get to a point where you're writing something and then you already know what the other one is probably going to like edit or respond? So you guys are laughing, so
Yeah, we were joking this morning. Because we're passing off book 3 in Shepherds right now. So I had taken a pass and I kicked it over to Jeff and he's doing his pass. And I said, oh, well, there's something I wanted to tell you about. I made a tweak in this section. He's like, well, I was thinking about doing X, Y, Z. And I said, yeah, that's what I did. He's like, oh, perfect. He's like, save me some time now. So
yeah, it's a lot like, any other close relationship, personal and professional. And here we have both, we're best friends and business partners. And eventually you do feel like you have this one brain, right? Like, you know what he's going to do. He knows what I'm going to do, or you have a great idea and he's already had it. And there's no question that we've seen a lot of that over the last couple of years, just because the pace has increased. But look, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So we kind of had no choice, like Brian was alluding to streamline our process and get more efficient. And I think it wasn't as hard as we thought it was going to be to do that. And part of it is that thing that you're talking about. we're just sort of in sync. We're always on the same page, not 100%, but 99. So that makes it very efficient. But yeah, if you're going to release 4 books a year, you're going to have to be efficient. There's no question about it, or else someone is going to be really mad at you. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it was funny. I was talking to Jack Carr, and he was talking about how the process of like how his publishers want like a book a year, and for him, like solo, to put a book a year out with like everything else he does, he was like, okay, and he had to like get super diligent with blocking out time where like he would literally leave and go to, like, he has a writing cabin, right? Like he just takes off and goes, does the whole like writer's isolation thing and just knocks everything out too. So it's interesting having to do it in a partnership role, number one. And I can see in some aspects that where when you have a good partnership, that would actually work to your benefit, because you're doing the chapters you're supposed to do, and then you guys send them off to each other, and then you work on the other end of it, and then you send that back and forth, and you just kind of keep refining and building that up as well. I was going to ask, did the whole process, like when everything kind of shut down and you guys started hunkering down more, did that make it easier to go through the writing process, because there were things that you probably had commitments to before that would pull you away from writing that weren't so much anymore, at least for that short period of time? Because you're in Florida, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm in Florida and he's in Kansas. So I won't speak for Brian, but I can tell you for me, that's not the case. It was actually the opposite, because we both had transitioned to writing full time before COVID.
Oh, okay.
And there's something really, really nice about 6:45 getting here and everybody leaves. My wife teaches at the school that my kids go to. Right. They're all out the door, and I've gotten the whole day. And during that first 6 months of COVID, our kids were at home doing home-based learning. So it was actually an enormous distraction to have. And everyone, Wendy she was teaching, she was doing the virtual teaching, so she wasn't there to help the kids. So I had to get them online and make sure that they were, transitioning, like all of us. So it's a tough transition to go from in-person to online learning. And so actually I found that part to be a little bit stressful. Fortunately in Florida, we've sort of been back in school for quite a while. This is our last year they were in-person learning, and this year also. So it was really just the first 6 months, but no, it wasn't easier. It should have been, but it was actually a little bit harder.
I get it.
Yeah. My kids, again, from spring break on, they were home, and then they stayed home the whole next year. And, I thought it would be really difficult, that I'd be herding cats the whole day. And I was proud of those kids. Like, they buckled down, and they liked their remote learning, and they almost maybe liked it too much, to the point where it was like, I have all this autonomy, over my day. And I think they sort of learned to maybe game the system. And after a while, I realized, I've got to get these kids back in school, not really because they're bothering me coming to my office, like interrupting or anything. I thought that's what would happen. I thought the whole day it'd be one thing after another, because it's really easy for kids to like outsource the management of their daily stuff to the parents. The parents just do it quick and easy for them. But no, they had to make their own lunch, and they had to manage their own internet stuff. After a while, I taught them how to log back into the device and stuff. But it was them missing out on that, being around other kids. I think they really need to have that collection of kids their own age where they're interacting, being very social. Because I felt like all my daughters sort of, they sort of drew back into themselves, and I could tell that they needed to get back with people. It's interesting.
Yeah, that was the worry, right? And I mean, not just the worry. I mean, that happened to a lot of kids, sadly. For some kids to an extreme level, that isolation and that loss of connection with the kids, especially some kids that have a not so ideal home situation where school was actually a better part of their day as well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We were fortunate from a standpoint, like we've homeschooled since day one, but what drove us out of Washington was the continued lockdown, because all that, what you just talked about, we got that all from all their activities they did, jiu-jitsu. We had a family membership to the YMCA. So like the kids had constantly were like in basketball, soccer, gymnastics, we'd been there a couple of years. So they had started making friends with the same kids, same age, going through the same sports season after season. Right. So that extended shutdown for a long period of time where where at first what you would think a concern would be with homeschooling, where you have the lack of socialism, but for them, going to church every Sunday, being in youth group, singing in the choir, doing all these sports activities outside of home, that was all like just shut down and closed. And that's when we saw them starting to kind of recede more and starting to kind of, especially my oldest son, who at the time was 11 when all this started, and it was starting to pay more and more attention to the world. He was starting to get more like anxious and anxiety and worrying about like everything was going on. And we just said, all right, we're done. And then we came out here. So speaking of Montana, like, how did you guys enjoy your visit out here?
We had a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great hospitality. And we had a big steak dinner, right, Jeff? Cooked up some steaks.
First of all, it's a beautiful town. Neither of us had ever been there. We did a VRBO, had a little house outside of town with a gorgeous view. And, we were there with Tim Cruikshank and his business partner. And so we did the pod and came home. We went to the grocery store where there was an outdoor kitchen, and we cooked this huge meal. And of course, they're the wine guys, right? So both wine, they drove in, so they brought some wine. We had great food, great company, great wine. Visiting with Andy was amazing as well. So it was an amazing trip. Great visit. You live in a very special place, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, we're lucky. I mean, we definitely sought it out, but we've been here now just a little bit over a year, and like not a single regret. It's like it's panned out like more than anything we could possibly ask for in regards to like community and opportunities to get outdoors and do more stuff, and the environment, like SBG, the gym that we go to, like the jiu-jitsu gym, and I met Andy there. I met a lot of really good friends there, so it's been great, man. We really enjoy it out here. So I was talking about that with Tim, the Sons of Valor series. So that was really cool, because when I had you guys on last year, I had just listened to the first book of the Tier 1 series, and then I had just gone just deep, and just especially with Ray Porter like narrating and your guys' writing style. It's probably the closest. I was talking to somebody about it when I was just talking to my wife, and I was recommending your series to her because she enjoys those books as well. And I said it's the closest thing to like a movie that's being described to you. You know what I mean? Like it's so vivid, right? Like his style of narration, and then your guys' writing style. It especially like some of the battle scenes you guys would do, and like how the characters would go through different emotions. Like you literally felt like you were right there, kind of going through it with them. So it was really, and it just sucked me in. And I went through the book 1, book 2. All the way through the 6th one. So then when you guys announced you guys were doing the spinoff with Chunk and the Sons of Valor series, man, I was pretty excited about that.
I think his performance on Sons of Valor might even be the best, because you really, really feel like you're in both sides, right? Because Sons of Valor, we took that painting the antagonist, painting the villain's journey. We took that sort of to the next level for us, I mean, you had that in Tier 1. You really got to see what it was like to be in the mind of the VVAC, bad guy's head and stuff. But Sons of Valor, you're in Qasim Nadir's family. I mean, you get to see all the angst and everything he goes through with his friend, and sort of this slow radicalization of him. And I don't know if anybody could have really portrayed him like Ray. Anybody else could have.
Yeah, Ray's very, very gifted for sure. It was what a blessing it's been for us to work with him in those 2 series. He's amazing.
Yeah, I enjoyed the that development with the character going from not what he would consider like a just an average citizen, right, living in London, living his life, and having suffered that tragedy at a younger age, and then going and then just that slow transition of like the little incremental steps of justifying, like, no, you're just doing this. No, don't worry. You're just doing, it's all you're doing is helping write some code. All you're doing is helping with this. All you're doing is, and then before you know it, it's boom. He's like right there. Right. I'm wondering if that's how it is for everybody. Right.
I tell you, we worried a little bit about it. The tragic backstory is something you usually associate with the hero of a series. Right. And we wanted very much to be able to get into the mind of this radicalization process, but we had a lot of high-level conversations about this, about whether or not we may have oh my God, so cute. Whether or not we may have made him almost too sympathetic, right? Like at some point, your villain has to be a villain. You can't have the conflict of rooting for the villain instead of your hero. And so we needed to accelerate him towards someplace where he's less sympathetic. But there was a lot that went into finding that balance for sure, where you could see and sympathize with his evolution, but still hate him by the end. So it was a lot of work, more work than usual for the antagonist. Although we tend to put a lot of effort into our antagonists anyway. But his was tough. His was tough.
I remember mid-book, I called you and you were like, "What's up?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm feeling bad about Kasim." And you were like, "You mean what we're doing to him?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm starting to like this guy and I feel sorry for him." And we had a big talk. Do we dial it down or not? And we decided, well, we'll just keep going and we'll see. And if we need to adjust, we will. And I think we struck the balance for that because, and you're going to see more of that in Sons of Valor 2. The next book comes out in June, Violence of Action. You know, that continues. You know, you'll see a little glimmer of the old Kasim, but he's going to keep sliding down that slippery slope. And by the end of that book, you're going to like him even less. And by the end of the book 3, you're going to like him even less. But it'd be very exciting for somebody who starts at book 1 and binges all the way through, because you're going to see a huge transformation in this guy. And like you said, Alex, you picked up on it. Each incremental step, it makes sense. But when you look at them in total, you'd say, wow, I could never have gone from here to here.
And that's the key, right, Brian? Like you want the reader to be able to say, wow, yeah, you know, under those circumstances, I might have done that. Wow, under those circumstances, I might even have done that. But there needs to be some clear point where the reader goes, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now he's a bad guy.
Here's the line, right?
Yeah, and if you don't have some sort of line, then you do run the risk of having it a little blurry. And so there was a lot that went into that in book 1. By book 2, I think it was the evolution was sort of already had its trajectory and it was a lot less work. But yeah, there was a lot of craft that had to go into that for the first one.
Yeah, I like that you guys, one of the things I like about your style is, and just to use this example, because it's just like I can think of off the top of my head, right? You think of a series like the James Bond series, right? Each movie, if that was a book, right, it's its own thing. There's some connection as far as like, you know, continuity and characters, but it's very similar, very formulaic as far as, you know, the beginning, you know, the introduction of the bad guy, you know, the antagonist, a little bit of backstory of like why he wants to destroy the world or take over the world.
Yeah.
Right? And then he dies at the end, right? So
right.
Usually, right? So what I like about your series is there's this like character development that you get invested in, you know, for all characters, right? You know, the supporting character. I love that you guys brought Jarvis back into this, you know, series as well. And you have this investment as a reader with the characters, and not only, like I said, not only the hero, but like the antagonists and the villains, and seeing, like, I really loved how you wrapped. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I liked how you wrapped up this book, and it opened up so many options for like where this can go over the next, you know, 3, 4, 5 books, whatever you guys are planning for the series.
Well, it's cool that you picked up on that, because, you know, everyone, all 3 of us, we've been in real life involved in, you know, the war on terror and fighting these enemies. And so we know, we have that insight of, you know, you don't just kill the bad guy and then there can be a new bad guy. That's not how the real world works. Like, you go through a whole series of cutouts and bad guys to get to that one HVT that you're really hunting for, and it can take years, right? And so from the very beginning of Tier 1, Brian and I had said, that's what we want to do. We want, there has to be some sort of resolution at the end of a book or the readers are unsatisfied, right. But leaving it open that some of your antagonists can arc across multiple books. And we tend to do it in about 3 books. So it's almost more of a trilogy style within the series. So for example, in Tier 1, we call that, not officially, but Brian and I unofficially call that our Persian trilogy, right? Because we had the Iranian VVAC element, et cetera. And then we shift in books 4 through 6 into what we call our Russian trilogy. But to be able to arc those characters out as well, I think it just makes it richer, and it makes it, for people that have served, it makes it a little more believable. You don't have to quite suspend so much disbelief to be able to enjoy the series, because that's how the real world works. It's not all clean at the end.
And you know, the characters even threw us a curveball, because in Tier 1, Book 6, we had planned on wrapping up that Russian trilogy completely, and something happens in there. I mean, it presented itself that, we got another what if question. Every book we start with this what if question, and as we got to the end, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't made it to book 6, but when we got to the end, we're like, well, what if there's one more thing that Jarvis needs Dempsey to do? And it's an audacious thing. It's something nobody would think of doing. It's something maybe only Dempsey could do. And so, we did get some comments from readers and some reviews like, wait a minute, you did a cliffhanger at the end of book 6. There's still something unresolved with Arcady. Yep.
And we're hard at work on that book now, and it's a lot of fun. Book 7 in that series is just called Dempsey, and that book comes out about a year from now. So we're super excited to get that out to the world.
Okay, so you just answered my next question, which was what was the plan for the Tier 1 series? Are you going to pick that up again?
Yeah, we're bringing that up in every interview because we're starting to get hate mail. It started out as, hey, when's it coming back? Hey, what's happening now? Hey, it's been a year. The tone of the emails are getting a little less friendly. So we've announced on every interview lately, Tier 1 has still got a long way to go. There was a little pause because of Sons of Valor and the Putnam book with W.B. Griffin, and of course Shepard coming out. But it's coming back, and it's well in process now, and we'll be out in about a year.
I would assume that's a good problem to have.
That's a very good problem.
Yeah, the demand of from the fans, which is just shows you like how much they're invested in, and they care about the characters in the books themselves, number one, and they enjoy them, and also like how much of an audience you guys have built over the last few years, especially in the last 2 years. Like I pay attention to one thing I do is and I know a lot of people hate this with social media, right? But social media is it's an interesting tool and dynamic in a standpoint of like you can kind of see the evolution of a growth of like a brand or a business, right? Especially if you kind of jump in earlier as somebody who like follows or is friends with somebody, and looking at your guys' social media pages from a couple of years ago to now, you can see a lot of when you guys will post something about a book, or a character, in the comment section, and all these people are just dropping these little like inside jokes or notes or cues because they're all in on, have read the books, are deep, understand the characters. So I like that. I think it's really interesting, and it's fun to see the evolution of it at least from the outside, right? And as a fan of myself, the series. So tell me about these the next books. You have Dark Intercept, and then you have Rogue Asset, right?
Yeah. Which one do you want to take, Jeff?
Either one. So I guess we'll start with Dark Intercept since
that's one I just started. Like I literally just started that one. So
good.
Yeah. So that one came out in September. That's the first book in a new series. And actually, one fun thing that Tyndale House has done for us on this series is they agreed to bring those first 3 books out very rapidly. Mm-hmm. So rather than doing a book a year, we actually are going to get 3 books out in about 13 months. So book 1 came out in September, and the next book comes out in April. But this has been really exciting. What's interesting about this series, the first book, Dark Intercept in particular, is it's an idea that's actually a few years old. How old, Brian? 3 or 4 years?
Well, we started it in 2016. That's
wow, it's that long. So yeah. So it's we have drawers full of partials and short stories and all kinds of stuff that will keep us busy for 20 years if people will keep reading. But this was one that we were playing around with and we're really excited about. But then when we got the Sons of Valor spinoff with Blackstone, they were so gracious to support the Tier 1 series. They actually have taken over the Tier 1 series now. So Blackstone is doing book 7 as well as
interesting.
And then having, the Putnam deal where Tom Colgan asked us to write the W.B. Griffin, those things sort of fell into place. And we had this idea and we're like, well, someday, I guess. And we sort of put it away. And then the universe changed its mind, and just this opportunity fell out of the sky through a friend of ours who you probably know, Josh Hood, who writes the Treadstone series. He had met someone from Tyndale and they were looking, and make a long story short, this opportunity presented itself. So we were really excited to be able to get back to it and write it. It's a little bit different. we didn't feel it was as different as some people suggested, because really just adds a layer. So the Shepherd series, Dark Intercept in particular, is pretty much an Andrews and Wilson story. It's got action and covert ops and that sort of thing. What we did was we just added one more layer, and that is this faith element, where we have these elements of crisis and faith. Our main character, Jed Johnson, who is a Navy SEAL who's medically retiring early after an injury. He's got this backstory of tragedy and regret from decisions he made. Something happened in his youth that just shook his faith and sent him on a new path. And so putting in those elements of crisis and how you deal with questions of, how can there be a God in light of all that I've seen and those sorts of things, that was really fun for us to be able to do. And we also incorporated some light supernatural elements, spiritual warfare type of elements. But again, these, to us, it didn't feel like a huge, radical change. It was just sort of adding another layer. But we've really enjoyed these books and the series, and the response has been tremendous from people who have tried it. So yeah, it's out now, and the next one comes out in April. So we're hopeful people will check it out. And we also have the exciting news that this is the series that's been optioned for television, and so we're working on being able to get to the point where we can announce more information on that as well. So the Shepherds will be coming to the medium-sized screen sometime soon.
Is it one of the? Can you say, is it one of the streaming platforms?
We're not really supposed to say anything, so
all right,
probably already in trouble. But yeah, but it is the deal.
We have a call with the producers next week, so we're hoping.
Yeah, hoping that they'll give us a green light to share more information.
But how far are you in that book so far, Alex?
Oh, I literally just opened it up.
Okay.
I have I don't know if you heard. I had to rush them out. So the one downside about moving here, I have to say this, is the one downside, I don't commute anymore because I work from home, and everything is 5 minutes from here. So my time in the car of listening to books and podcasts has gone down significantly. So so now I do it when I get my workouts in and whatnot. And even then, sometimes I gave you guys a tour of our garage gym here, before we got started. We we'll get a workout going. My wife and I'll put a book on or a podcast, and then the door opens 8 times.
Yeah,
the kids coming in and out, and some of the podcasts not a big deal, or some of the books, but some of the books not age appropriate. My 8-year-old walks out, So
yeah.
This one will be a little safer maybe than some of our other stuff. But I will tell you, you need to follow up with us when you're done, because
I will.
You in particular are someone we're very interested in your feedback, because we share a lot of family values and faith values and stuff like that. So it's going to be exciting for us to hear what you think.
Okay, now I'm going to have to double down and just knock it out.
I mean, it is different. Like Jeff said, it still has our military characters and action and but in the faith element, the spirituality, that stuff is a different. But the other thing I think that makes this book different from some of our others is that, most of our other series, you're jumping into somebody's life when they're sort of at the pinnacle of their career, like a Chunk, a Dempsey, they're operating, they're with their team. In this book, Jed, he's medically retiring, and he is grappling with something that so many veterans do, which is, when you leave active duty, you've lost your purpose, you've lost your team,
your identity. And so when you meet Jed, he is struggling. He's struggling emotionally, spiritually, physically. He's suffering from an injury. That's the reason he's being medically retired. And, he gets called on by an old friend, somebody who he's sort of at loggerheads with, and they left on bad terms. And this guy calls him up and asks him to do something that he really doesn't want to have to do, But the warrior in him, and then the brother in him says, yeah, I guess I'll do this. And so this is domestic. It's dealing with a whole different type of adversary, a whole different type of problem than any other series. And we have a young girl who has a point of view character. And that was really interesting and fun and challenging for us to write, because Jeff and I both have daughters who are the same age as Sarah Beth, who's one of the lead characters in this book.
And Jeff, wouldn't you say that, that for us was something that I think helped us grow as writers, but also is challenging, is to write that young woman's perspective?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's tough for a middle-aged man to write a young girl anyway. Right.
Yeah.
But the crisis that we put her in, being fathers and having daughters, it was emotionally difficult to write some of her fear. And I mean, it's, very challenging. But the flip side of that, and Brian and I have spoken about this before, so I know I'm okay to speak for both of us. It changed our relationship with our daughters a little bit, because we were able to go to them and say, some of it was little stuff like, hey, I'm writing this scene. Will you just read it over? Is that what she would do? And no, Dad, 12-year-old girls aren't into that. They're into this. And they got excited to be part of the process. You know what I mean? But when it got to the heavier elements, being able to, get close to our daughters and say, what would she really react? How would she react? How would Emma, how would Larkin react in this situation? It was challenging, but also I think there was some growth that came from it. So it was cool. It was a lot of fun.
That actually touches a little bit on what I wanted to ask you next, which was the research you guys do and the type of research you do for your projects, right?
That's it. We just talk to our daughters. That's all.
Ask 12-year-old, hey, what would Dempsey do here?
What kind of sniper platform do you think?
I mean, I'm assuming a lot of that comes from your background in the military and the people you know. But with some of the things you guys go into, especially like in the Tier 1 series, does it involve do you guys reach out to people you know? Do you do various forms of research on it, or like how does that work for you guys? Your process?
Kind of yes to everything. I mean, we are very blessed to have been in the community and maintain relationships with those people, and so it's always a phone call away to ask a question. I remember talking to a good friend of both of ours now that I served with. We'll just say his first name is Sean, and reaching out to him for a different book and saying, hey, what about this? And he's like, well, no, here's what you should do. And we're like, oh my gosh, that's way better. So being able to talk to those guys is huge. But, the geopolitical stuff, you just have to sort of stay on top of it. Like, you can't come up with an idea and then say, okay, let's research what the geopolitics are. Both of us are, as former naval officers, I think Brian, especially working in his community, we're very intrigued by evolving geopolitics, whether it's a war on terror, relationship with Russia, China, North Korea. And so we tend to be well read. We both subscribe to various trades that keep us in that loop and read a lot of essay and opinion on those sorts of things. And on the one hand, that sort of informs the what if questions. And on the other hand, it's a great foundation for exploring some of the geopolitics. So it's a little bit of everything. You think that's fair, Brian? I think we do a little bit of everything. And then we get to meet other people. Brian was able to set up a really cool thing in book 6.
Yeah, like in Collateral, and you're seeing some of this stuff happening right now in the Black Sea and along the Ukrainian border. I mean, we sort of war gamed out what we thought it would look like if Russia didn't want to roll into southern Ukraine, because, in taking back the Crimean Peninsula, they regained the naval base and they really sort of chopped the southern control from Ukraine in half. That really castrated Ukraine's ability to operate their navy, because now Russia controls access between the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. And so that was fun, and to war game that out. And one of the things we did is, we called up a buddy in the Pentagon and said, hey, do you know an Arleigh Burke skipper? Because I was on a submarine, Jeff was with Special Warfare, but neither one of us had, cruised around an Arleigh Burke. And he's like, yeah. So he connected us with a guy, and we had written all those Donald Cook chapters, but we sent them to him, and he's like, yeah, that's a lot like what a submarine would do. But remember, on Arleigh Burke, we've got fuel tanks. Like, you had this nice reactor, you never ran out of fuel. But an Arleigh Burke captain, he's always thinking about fuel. And also, everybody can see us everywhere we go. So, you can hide. We can't hide. It's a very different strategic dynamic. So that changed those chapters and how we use that projection of power. And I think you can tell us, I mean, did you feel that tension for that skipper and the vulnerability he felt during those scenes?
Yeah, especially with that period of like lack of knowledge, right? And then this perceived like deadline, and with a decision to be made. And that's what I was talking earlier about. The way you guys do your books is you literally feel like you're right there next to them, going through this thought process and going through this, like the edge of your seat, the tension filled decision making process that these characters have to make. And what I like about your style is you'll almost pull back a little bit while something's going on, like in an event that's going to probably break down in the matter of like seconds, right? But then you'll pull back a little and then go through the thought process of what that character is going through, or maybe they'll have a little flashback to something, right? And I don't know, because I was, I didn't serve, so I don't know, but like, or I didn't, I never went through, combat, so I don't know what it's like to go through that experience where, you have that flash of this could be it, right? And like what that feels like. I mean, I've heard, from family and friends, sometimes it feels like time slows down. Sometimes it feels like it goes faster than you can even imagine. So, but you guys do a really good job of portraying that in the books.
Oh, well, thank you. Very
nice.
Yeah. So what I want to know now is like, what beyond the books that you guys are doing right now, what are some other things you guys get into, as far as like keep your time busy? Because I know, Jeff, you have like your daughter's doing some acting as well. And so, yeah, I wanted to kind of touch on that. Jeff, why don't you start?
Yeah. So my daughter is 13 now, and she's an incredibly talented singer and actress. And she's actually, her and her brother have had the opportunity to join a praise and worship band at our church, which is sounds small, but actually it's more like a Mercy Me concert every single weekend, because it's a 12,000 member church. And so it's been really exciting to watch her grow, to watch both of them grow as musicians. But as part of that, she got interested in theater and was in a couple of plays, and then got cast in a lead role of this Faith character in a Christian sitcom, Faith in Real Life. So it's just been really exciting to watch her grow, but it is, it's a lot of time for the whole family. And I somehow got sucked into writing some of the screenplays for the show. And
the writer?
Yeah. So gratefully, I don't mean it that way. She'd be very sad to hear me say that. The show is sort of on pause right now because the streaming service is looking at acquiring it. So we got a little break from the hectic schedule of that. So, but I think I say all that to just say this: we're very busy with the books because we're doing 4 a year, and it's so much fun. The only other thing I really do is family. And I think that's true for Brian too. Like the kids, any opportunity I took Jack fishing yesterday for the first time. We've been trying to do it for 4 months. He's 14 and he wanted to go out on a boat, and, we have a 6-year-old. So for us, it's family stuff. It's church stuff all weekend. And that's about it. Like I don't have much because of Brian. I have no time for it. I'm trying to think what do I do for me? Nothing. I write books and I don't say that as a complaint. Both the great joys of my life are my family and my partnership with Brian in creating these stories and building these universes. So it's plenty to keep me busy.
That's awesome. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other thing I would agree with everything you said, sort of in reverse for me with the kids and trying to help them through this, time period of their lives. It's this formative years and stuff. But I haven't talked about this in any of the podcasts, but maybe the only other thing is, I remember like that first year of the pandemic, I had like a health issue, and I sort of had this moment where I was like, and I've talked with Jeff quite a bit about this. I've just never shared it on a show before, but I just realized, I was in the worst shape of my life, physically, especially this job where you're just sitting in a chair all day, bad posture, skinny fat, just inflexible, just terrible. And I just said, you know what, I just can't, Jeff and I joke, you can't rest your way to better health. I think Jeff told me that. You can never rest your way to better health. And so, as you get middle-aged, your joints start bothering you, and I just realized I had to make a change. And so, ever since then, the 6th, I started getting back into shape with some cardio, and, but the difference is, when I was younger, you try to just go, you abuse your body, right? You're like, my body can handle it. I just had just willpower. And then I realized, I don't think I can do that anymore. Like, I just need to treat my body nice. Like, I don't want to wreck my elbow or my knee or my back again. Like, I can't afford to start the journey and 2 weeks into it or 3 months into it, sideline, and then have to start all over again. Right. So I just been working slow and surely. There's a lot of great, you showed your gym, right? So it's like, I started realizing there's all these great resources on YouTube and how to do lifts properly and how to get in shape. It's a great time for fitness, I would say, right now. So yeah, that's the only other thing. I've made that part of my life. I think I'm happier for it. I'm a better writer for it, better dad for it, putting fitness in my life. So.
And then here's a little tease that I'm doing without Brian's permission, but only as a form of parental accountability for our daughters. And I'm not going to give any details here because there aren't any. Our daughters have decided that they've become friends through us, right? And in fact, we're all doing a huge family vacation in the spring. And our daughters have decided that they're going to try their hand at writing, and they're going to do it as co-authors. So they're playing around with a book that they want to write, and they're going to be sort of using the Andrews and Wilson. So I guess it would be Andrews and Wilson, right? This is bad. They're going to be our direct competition now that I think about it. But isn't that fun when your kids are intrigued by what you do, and they're both so creative. Larkin is amazing. Emma's amazing. Emma has done a little bit of writing before. So I'm announcing this publicly so that they'll be ashamed if they don't if they don't follow through and produce them.
There's something that's amazing, man. There's something to be said about putting something out there, for as a public like proclamation, right?
That's right.
I mean, for kids, obviously it's a little bit different, but I mean, just like as a general thing to do, it's an accountability thing, right? We when we were looking at houses out here, we were what we did was we prepaid for our jiu-jitsu membership for a year before we had a house. And it was like our planting our flag, like we're coming to Montana. We'll know when. We don't have a house yet, but here's like a 1 year's membership, because we knew the community we wanted to get involved in, the people, and we had toured the gym and whatnot. So it was something we really wanted to do. So that was kind of our thing of like, hey, we're going to do this. So yeah, I think that's important. That's amazing, man. The whole writing thing with the daughters, and Brian, talking about the health, that is huge. It's something I have had to think about a lot with how I approach, health myself, with my background being, trainer for 20 years and gym owner and now transitioning into podcasting and consulting, like how often I train, and then also like what I'm trying to accomplish. Right. So I just turned 42. I lift 4 days a week. I do jiu-jitsu 3 to 4 days a week. So it's a balance. Like I've definitely adjusted my training and my lifting, because there was about a 3-month period there where, especially getting into what they call like the CAP class, the combat athletics program, where I was like, why does my hip feel like it's going to snap? It's like, and then, tomorrow I'm supposed to squat 400 pounds. It's like, yeah. Like, so I had to totally adjust so it wasn't a matter of, I had to stop doing stuff. It was a matter of like, how much am I redlining my body? And what's my end game goal? Like, well, my goal is not to compete in a powerlifting competition, right? I never wanted to do that. I live to be strong so I can be healthy. I really enjoy jiu-jitsu. I potentially want to compete, and I want to stay healthy with 5 young kids. So I had to check my ego a little bit and not keep trying to put plates on the bar. And I still lift what you would consider heavy, but like compared to what I used to do, I totally changed it, and I changed my diet up a little bit too, to where I can started like leaning out a little bit more and be a little bit more mobile, and especially with jiu-jitsu. Like, I don't know if you guys have done jiu-jitsu before, like the whole concept of like you moving your body in a way that like you never thought you could move it, like moving your body in space. Like there has to be some mobility there. Yeah. Some mobility work, and squatting 600 pounds doesn't help me do that. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking when you were talking, Alex, is like they're not mutually exclusive, but they're not exactly synergistic either, right? Like doing heavy lifting is going to be very counterproductive for the flexibility required for almost any martial arts, but especially jiu-jitsu. So yeah, you're gonna have to shift to the middle somehow, right?
Oh yeah, no, and I definitely did. I mean, this was a few months ago, and I've made the shift now, and I only lift what you would call heavy 3 days a week. But it's, somebody told me the other day, I was like, yeah, I don't squat over like this much, and they're like, what the hell? Like, that's a lot. I go, well, no, it's for you, it would be a lot. And I wasn't saying you're bragging, but I'm saying like you want to work in and not to go down like a rabbit hole of fitness, but like you're trying to work in like when you're moving weight, you want to work like in a 60 to 70% range of like what you would consider your 1 rep max. That way your volume is still up as well, right? So for me, moving down and hitting those numbers, but keeping my reps up and not feeling like I was putting all this pressure like on my hips. Actually I feel better and healthier. And so, yeah, it was having to make that adjustment and kind of that realization as well. Because somebody asked me, like, why do you still lift weights like this many days a week? I'm like, dude, I have 5 kids under 13. I'm like, I'm just trying to keep up with them as far as, energy wise and fitness. And also I have 4 daughters, and you guys know this. I'm trying to look scary as hell by the time they start dating.
There you go. I like that a lot.
But I mean, there's this whole idea sort of that I never even thought about before when I did athletics and stuff when I was younger, which is this idea of listening to your body. And you can sort of like realize that if you're so much up here, I don't know, it's like weird. I always thought like, okay, there's my brain and my body just does what my brain tells it to. But your body actually is communicating with your brain. It's just, I think I used to always ignore it, and I just push myself, and those sort of things lead to injury. And I think as you hit middle age, you say, you know what? My goal is to be fit and feel good and not hurt myself. And the minute you hurt yourself, you can't enjoy that training anymore.
Yeah, no, that's true. We were actually a bunch of us in the gym had just gotten together the other night for a bonfire, and we were talking to one of the guys who had just joined. And the way they do the gym here is they have like a foundations program that they put you through for 12 weeks. Basically, especially if you've never done jiu-jitsu before. So basically that, number one, like for your own safety before you get into like open mat and stuff. So you know what you're doing, you understand the basic fundamental movements, you've gone through some of the understandings of like what you consider like the unwritten rules, like mutually agreed respect factor on the mats and whatnot. And it gives a chance for what we joke around about, like the spazzy white belts to kind of calm down. Yeah, I mean, I'm still a white belt, so, but I've been doing it about a year now. So, but, and we were talking to him and he was saying like, yeah, I want to make sure. And this is a big guy too. He's like taller than me. And he's like, I just want to go in and make sure I know I'm going to get choked, but I want to really make sure like I'm keeping up with you guys. And he said, I just don't want to get hurt. And I said, well, that mentality of like, I'm just trying to keep up, like is going to get you hurt. I said, what you want to do is just be able to, I told him, I said, it's like surfing on water. It was like what you want to do with jiu-jitsu. And he just looked at me funny because it's coming from this like 6'1", 260-pound guy. And I'm talking about being like fluid with your emotion. Right.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I had to really learn is how to go what I thought was hard with like my football background, and then what's considered a hard roll now. But I rolled hard with like Andy and some of the other guys too, but it's not what I would consider a hard exertion of energy compared to what I used to do with football or some of my heavy lifting. It's totally different. And we come out like nobody's hurt, bump fists, high five, and like move on, so.
Yeah, I think that it sort of circles back to, this idea of book writing in the sense that, every like jujitsu, you're on this journey, right? You're on this journey to gain expertise, and you're being mentored. And then as you get better, you'll be mentoring. You've already talked about this one case where you've got a new guy and you've already acquired some wisdom and you're passing along to him. And so that's what's cool about the community. We try to do that in some of our stories too, where, like, especially Sons of Era, like Whitney Watts, she comes into this community and, she doesn't really understand the rules. She doesn't know how it works. And the characters, they teach her what it's like to be with the Tier 1 unit. And so we're going to be bringing Jake in. Jake's coming into the series now as he's aged Dempsey's son. So, we like to incorporate these elements of mentorship and the journey that people take because it really mirrors real life.
Yeah, as a trainer, you can appreciate one scene in this first Sons of Valor book where Whitney Watts has taken a break halfway through a run, and Chunk is jogging in place next to her as she throws up.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, and that's, again, that goes to what I was talking about with your writing style about, inserting these little elements of like these vulnerable moments for these characters, but also like how that applies to like real life as well. Where you've got somebody who's a veteran, and like that term, like grizzled vet, and you got this young up and comer, and she's just getting wrecked, and she would what she would consider like a healthy person, but the reality is it wasn't about like the energy output to just put yourself out there to the point where you go like balls to the wall and then burn out. He the whole time he's just doing this nice like steady pace. So nope, she's back.
Hi, how are you?
This is my cue to wrap it up. So now we're here. I wanted to wrap up by saying thank you to both of you for reaching out, and then also being supportive of what I'm doing with this podcast. It's been great, especially early on when I first started. I was, hey, you gotta go down. I remember when I had you guys on. That's my youngest, Phoebe. She'll be 4 soon. But I remember when I told my wife you guys were coming on the podcast. You guys were the first interview I was going to do with more than one person. I was like, I'd written notes down like feverishly, like, okay, when I say, okay, make sure you say Jeff's name or make sure you say Brian's name. But it like after that was done, and when we talked afterwards, you guys gave me a lot of good feedback, and that really helped carry me into where I wanted to go with the podcast afterwards. And then even when I had this little bit of downtime when we were getting ready to move and just kind of wrapping it up for a little bit before I kind of kicked it back off again, going here, it helped to kind of look back at what I'd done, because there was a little bit of that like insecurity of like, am I really doing this? Like, am I good at this? Is any like and whatnot? But like I went back and I picked up snippets of the old episodes I'd done the year before, and I was like, oh, I got a lot here to work with and really build on. So I wanted to thank you guys for that.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Yeah, I do too. You're doing great stuff, man.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to getting through Dark Intercept and then Rogue Asset next. So my wife loves these books as well. So she's actually in Texas right now, coming back today from a lifting seminar. Speaking of lifting, so she'll be back. And I sent her a picture that we were getting ready to do this interview, so she was stoked. So she says hi, and looking forward to getting through the rest of your books, man. And I wish you guys nothing but the best with everything you're doing. It's been so great to see the growth over the last couple of years, and I can't wait to see where I'm one of the guys that's okay. When's the next Sons of Valor and Tier 1 book coming out?
Well, that's good. Thanks. We sure had fun being here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it is great reconnecting, and I think we got a copy of Rogue Asset coming your way. It should be there today or tomorrow if it hasn't showed up in the mailbox today. And then have a wonderful Christmas, and let your listeners know that if they want to stay tuned with everything we've got going on, you can go to Andrews-Wilson.com and sign up for our newsletter. We will not spam your inbox. It's just going to be, status reports and the like. So
they do not. I am part of that newsletter, and I can attest to that. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and you have a Merry Christmas.